Greetings, and welcome back to another episode of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the show where I, the curator, discuss my personal favorite show of all time, personal favorite franchise of all time, Doctor Who. And, we had some fun talking some Cybermen last week with our good buddy, the Snark in Space, or Cyber Snark, or Robo Snark, as he called himself last week. And those of you who actually watched last week's episode know that he promised to come back for this week and then bailed on me. Like, imagine that. Thankfully, my good friend, if my mouse will cooperate, Cyber Soda has so graciously decided to step in.
Well, that explains why I don't remember agreeing to be on this episode and why I didn't remember it before today.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of last minute. Here's the thing. I'll say it to you. So he agreed to do this week. Well, last week when we recorded, he agreed to do this week. He said, "Yeah, fine, I'll be there." And 2 days ago, I had everything set up. Like, I had everything already in place, in order. I sent him a message. Hey, when can you record? And he's like, "Oh, sorry, dude. I'm out of town for the whole weekend."
Oh.
So I asked him, okay, that's fine. That's cool. When will you be back? Still hasn't replied.
Well, you're lucky I have no life.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, it's like I haven't waited for 1 in the morning for his reply on that thing. But you know what? Whatever. Water under the bridge. At least I have you on here. Yep. All right? So, as per usual, where's my mouse? There it is. As per usual, the birthday section takes up the first half of the first segment of this show. This is a pretty interesting birthday section, even if I do say so myself. Okay. So we are counting down from the 8th of August all the way to the 14th of August, when hopefully this episode will be broadcast, or rather will be uploaded. And on the 8th, we have, and I realize this is the Cybermen episode, but you know what? On the 8th, we have the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Terry Nation. I mean, you know who Terry Nation is, right?
Yeah, created the Daleks.
Yeah, he's often
the plunger in the picture kind of gives it away.
Yeah, and the Dalek in the back, and in the back,
yeah,
behind him. You know, he's often been referred to as the George Lucas of Doctor Who.
Really?
And you know what? I can agree.
Why is that? Because he created the Daleks?
Yeah, the Daleks, and like he pretty much gave the direction of how Doctor Who monsters should look like.
Gotcha.
The template. You know, the Daleks, scary, evil, murderous with a very goofy and clunky design. Like, that's Doctor Who monster design at its best.
That's Doctor Who in a nutshell.
Pretty much, yeah. In a Dalek shell. And also on the 8th, someone slightly less of a contribution, but still a contribution nonetheless, George Cormack. Well, he played Dalius in The Time Monster, and as seen in this picture right here, he also played Kanpo Rinpoche, the incredibly racist yellow-faced character of the Hermit in Planet of the Spiders, but it's a very important character to the Doctor Who lore. Like, the character is way bigger than the actor here. Like, he's the Hermit, the person who essentially sent the Doctor on his journey to being the Time Lord that he eventually became.
So it's his fault.
Kinda. On the 9th of August, we have Miss Roberta Tovey. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name. She played the young Susan in the Peter Cushing Dalek movies. So, like, yes, Susan Foreman, but not the Susan Foreman that you're familiar with.
Yeah, not the one you all love.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the one we all know and tolerate, in my case. On the 9th of August, Bernard Hawley, apologize if I'm saying it wrong. He played a lot of side characters and side villains in Doctor Who and on Big Finish, but mainly he was one of the Axons in The Claws of Exos, and he came back as the voice of Exos on Big Finish. So it's pretty. I think it's a pretty notable thing that you get to play a character in the '70s Doctor Who and get to reprise a certain character in
Mhm.
Doctor Who Big Finish decades later. And speaking of actors who appeared on the television side and came back as their characters in Big Finish, on hold on, let me just say on the 10th, Mr. Murray Melvin, who of course played the character of Billis the Manager in the Torchwood series, specifically in season 1. But his character was really ambiguous. You didn't really get to know who this character is.
I don't
And then
remember.
the show got canceled, and then he came back in the Torchwood Big Finish range on audios. What were you saying there?
I said he must have not left an impact on me because I do not remember him from Torchwood.
Oh, when was the last time you watched it?
Well, years ago, to be fair.
I mean, you have it on physical now. Go ahead and watch it and see if he leaves a bigger impression on you.
Yeah.
Sadly, of course, he tragically passed away a couple of months ago. So, well, at least he gave us a couple of last few performances as the character before he went on his merry way. On the 10th, we have Mr. Peter Diamond. He was mostly a stuntman. He did a lot of stunt work on so many episodes, including the Dalek invasion of Earth, the Romans, the Space Museum, the Ice Warriors. He was a fight arranger in all these episodes. I mean, he's done a lot, but sadly, on most of these, he was uncredited. So it is rather unfortunate when these things happen.
Some people getting no respect.
Which is why I'm bringing him up over here, because
Mhm.
the guy did a lot and deserves to be
Remember.
what I'm looking for. Remembered for it, yeah. So also on the 10th, we have Kate O'Mara as she played the Ronnie in The Mark of the Ronnie, Time and the Ronnie, and Dimensions in Space. And here's another tragic thing. She was set to reprise the role on the Big Finish ranges with the Sixth Doctor. Like, they asked her, she was all set to come back. They asked her agent. They cleared it up with Pip and Jane Baker, the rights owners for the character. Everything was all set. The storyline was written, and she passed away before she could do it. But thankfully, they got a different actress to play the role. They just had to go with a future regeneration of the Ronnie.
Hey man, it works.
It's always a good thing that Time Lords have that ability. Am I right?
Yeah, no kidding. That is like the easiest reset button you could ever have.
Yeah, and it's such a good thing that it's the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to Time Lord recasting.
Thank you, William Hartnell.
I mean, it also helped with the untimely death of the Master, Roger Delgado. Like I said it best. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
On the 11th, we have that name. Hold on, Clive Doig. I have a feeling it's a French name that I'm just getting wrong. Clive Doig, maybe.
How do you spell it?
Doig.
Well, okay, Doig is right, but I don't know what nationality that is. That's not French.
I don't know. But yeah, so he was a vision mixer. It's essentially he's a visual effects person on a lot of the original Hartnell episodes, from An Unearthly Child all the way up to The Chase. Whoops, what happened to my website for a sec? Okay, so on the 11th, we have someone who I'm pretty sure his name is listed on just about every Doctor Who episode ever. Can you guess who that might be?
I've probably the guy who created the composer of the theme song.
You would be correct, sir. Ron Grainer, the original composer of the title sequence. Oh my goodness. Just throw out a guess. How many episodes do you think he's credited on?
I would assume all of them because they're using his music.
Give me a number.
Fuck. Probably close to 1,000, if you include Big Finish in the movies and stuff.
Yeah, for it's weird, but he's not credited on the Big Finish stuff. That's interesting.
It's really weird.
Yeah, but yeah, he's credited on 895.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so pretty big in Doctor Who, I'd say. And on the 12th, we have.
Before you continue, it was either him or it was Verity Newman and the guy who ran the BBC. Those would be the only three I could think of whose name would be on every episode.
you said Verity Newman. I see what you did there.
Verity Lambert, sorry.
And Sydney Newman. That was the character of Joan Redfern's granddaughter. That was her name. Okay, so on the 12th, Sharon D. Clarke. She played the character Grace in the Jodie Whittaker era, the almost companion, as I would say. I think you would have been a great companion, but like you probably haven't seen the Jodie Whittaker stuff in a while. But she's the one. She was married to Graham. She's the grandmother of Ryan.
Yes. She's the grandma. I remember her.
Yeah, and she almost was a companion, but she died in the first episode. Kept coming back as flashbacks and as a ghost. Yeah. She would have been a great companion. She's pure Doctor Who companion material.
So, jog my memory. She died because the villain of the first step of her Whittaker's first episode killed her. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a while since I've seen the episode, so I'm just trying to jog my memory because I remember her. I thought she was great. Like that's the only episode I've seen of her within it. I thought she's great. She should have been a companion.
Yeah, I agree. She would have been the best companion if she had joined. And finally, on the 12th, the man, the myth, the legend, just, not necessarily the legend we want to remember.
Drumroll?
What?
Drumroll?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
There it is.
John Nathan Turner, producer extraordinaire, or rather showrunner extraordinaire, who showrun the show from 1980 all the way to the show's cancellation in 1989. He was the showrunner for no less than 4 Doctors.
He's the longest running showrunner, correct?
Yeah, 9 years.
Good on him.
I mean, basically, he was the showrunner for the entirety of the 80s. And in more ways than one, he's the one that kept the show alive. He hasn't actually done good stories. He hasn't necessarily been a good person behind the scenes.
Yeah, I heard.
As we keep finding out, the more time goes on. But he kept the show alive, and he gave us some Doctors that we probably wouldn't have had if it wasn't for him. And here's a side note question: do you know who he had planned to replace Sylvester McCoy if the show had continued on to the 90s?
Rowan Atkinson.
Good guess, but no.
Fuck. Is it somebody well known? I'm assuming.
Someone from a franchise we talked about just before we went live.
Oh. So it's from Harry Potter.
Yeah, way to give it away.
Yeah. Richard Harris.
Another good guess, but no.
Please be
Alan. You were only half right. Richard Griffiths.
Oh!
Could you imagine Vernon Dursley as the Doctor?
No, that would have been great.
I think I might have some concept artwork to send you later. Yeah. I think you're really going to enjoy it. I think he would have been a very interesting Doctor. Would have been made it pretty hard to view him as Vernon Dursley forever, but you know what? It just didn't go the way that it was planned. Yeah, but
Alan Rickman can do it with Hans Gruber and Severus Snape. I mean, that's. Yeah. Can you believe that Hans Gruber was that man's very first movie role?
That was the first?
Mm-hmm. Very first movie role ever.
Good on him. I mean, he probably had like a decade's worth of theater work.
Stage and some BBC stuff and whatnot, but as an actual movie, that was his very first movie.
And may he rest in peace.
Yes.
And for the wonderful list of people we had today, most of which are resting in peace right now. Hopefully they are resting in peace. Thank you all. We quite literally could not do this without you.
Now, before we go on to the subject, there was some Doctor Who news that dropped this week that I wanted to hear your thoughts on. That was about the what the hell is it called? The Underwater Menace.
Oh yeah, there was a new animated trailer.
Yeah, they dropped it. I haven't checked it out yet, but they did announce that it sounds like there might be more out there stuff out there. So, what are your thoughts on that?
What do you mean by more stuff out there?
Sorry, I read an article this week where Doctor Who, the head of TV archive to be at Kaleidoscope, gave a promising update on missing episodes from about 5-6 days ago.
Meaning that they're going to animate more?
Yeah, pretty much.
I thought he was talking about that they found the original missing.
Oh, and he says, like, he even said, like, there is a really good possibility that there are a lot of them are still out there, but for now, yeah, it's gonna be animated.
Cool. I love the Underwater Menace. Mm-hmm. I love it so much, and it's an I don't know why, but a lot of people hate that episode. I love it. Love it. So I'd be happy to see it animated. But you know what? Let's talk some Cybermen, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that is what we're here for, am I right?
Yes, sir, Bob.
So as with continuing on with the theme from last week, we're just going to talk about the Cybermen and their many appearances and many stories in the modern series. Now, for some reason, my mind blanked on it. I forgot to put on the Cybermen's first appearance in the modern series.
All good.
Yeah, the original Cyberman head in Van Statten's museum in the Ninth Doctor episode. Do you mind waiting until I find it? Because kind of want to...
I was going to say, if you don't have it, I can look for it while you continue hosting.
All right, cool. So you do that and let me know when you've uploaded it.
It was Dalek, right?
Yeah, the episode Dalek. The episode Dalek features a Cyberman in it before we actually see the Dalek. So so unfortunately, the Ninth Doctor didn't technically get to meet a Cyberman on screen, but he did meet a Cyberman a couple of times on the Big Finish range, which is really cool, and you should probably check that out. But the first time we see Cybermen properly in the modern series with the updated modern series redesign, I should say, was in the two-parter Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel, bringing the Cybermen full on into the 21st century with the really updated redesign, completely ditching the nylon or rubbery looking suits with the zippers from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and going for a full-on robotic suit with
part C-3PO, part Iron Man, part the robot from Metropolis.
Yeah, pretty much.
I found that. I the picture. It's loaded.
Cool. Now, would you believe me if I told you that on set, the Cybermen aren't actually wearing this helmet?
Oh?
Yeah, they actually have the real person's head on, and they just add on the helmet in post-production.
Oh, gotcha. Kind of like we do in Marvel movies.
Because it would be very, very difficult to act with this thing on your head, I would imagine.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It does not look comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it is a bit awkward when you see these people just standing there with this massive armor thing looking like this, and a tiny head sticking out.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's the magic of movie making.
So you want to jump back in appearance then? Because I do have the picture loaded. It's at the bottom.
Yeah, I just saw it. So yeah, it's the Revenge of the Cybermen, specifically the Fourth Doctor episode. The only time the Fourth Doctor has encountered Cybermen on screen, but you can kind of tell that it is the Revenge of the Cybermen design from the way the tubes on the side look like. But yeah, this is what the Cybermen used to look like, and this is how the modern design for the Cybermen look like. They still kept those.
This picture is giving me a Rosie the Robot vibe from the Jetsons. Sorry,
It's probably the eyes.
it is definitely the eyes and the yeah.
But speaking of the eyes, do you probably haven't seen last week's episode, but do you know why they made those eyes in the first place in the 60s?
Do they mean like the little like the holes right in the corners?
Yeah, the little uh, tear ducts in the
If I'm
eyes.
honest, I don't, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was for a functional reason. Like there was a practical reason for it.
Yeah, because the people were in those helmets kept suffocating and passing out from lack of oxygen.
That was my first thought was air holes. That's okay. That's an interesting way to do it.
So they added them in the wheel in space, if I remember last week's episode correctly. But it's nice that even though they don't need it, because the person inside still very firmly have their heads out in the open during filming, they still kept those tear duct looking things on the design, which I think is really admirable.
It's a characteristic in a way. It'd be like if you took away the rings on a Dalek.
What rings?
You know, like sorry, not the rings, the balls on a Dalek.
Yeah, the orbs.
Yeah, the orbs. It'd be like okay, like that's what makes them.
Yeah, it's part of their design.
Yeah.
So this episode also introduced, in live action, in any case, the first example of a cyber controller, drawing a lot of inspiration from Davros in the process. But and speaking of Harry Potter, also played by Robert Lloyd Peck. So,
this episode kind of preyed on a fear of mine that I've had since a little kid.
Which is?
So you ever seen Superman 3?
Superman 3?
Yeah, it's the one with Richard Pryor. There he goes to Smallville.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So are you familiar with the end of the movie where they turn one of the bad guys' henchmen into a robot? Okay, so at the end of Superman 3, Superman goes to the bad guy's base, and basically the bad guy is using a supercomputer. And the supercomputer ends up grabbing hold of one of his assistants and turning her into a robot on screen. And
I remember that from
seeing that happen in Doctor Who brought that memory back up, because that freaked me out as a kid. And that's basically what they did here. And then they do it later, like future spoilers, with Danny Pink.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh my God. So yeah, sorry, I was waiting for the first instance of this to bring that up. Like, there's a personal connection there for me of fear.
And speaking of that, it's something that the modern series did better than the classic series with the Cybermen, I think, is that it shows us the horrors of being cyber converted. Like in that scene where it kind of makes the Cybermen look more like the Daleks than the Cybermen, the original idea for the Cybermen, but it's like a concentration camp.
Basically,
like you see the people being marched in to these, essentially these gas chambers, except instead of the gas chambers, they're being melted down and stripped down to their basic components, and you see that giant crane thing lowering the Cyberman helmet onto them, that he come out as Cybermen. So I think the Cybermen, at least in the modern series, is always more pure body horror than the Daleks. Like the Daleks have always been an allegory for the Nazis and racial purity and segregation. The Cybermen, what sets the Cybermen apart from the Daleks, it's us. Like it is our future. It is what humans go do with technology. That's always been the idea, the original idea of Kit Pedler and Gary Davis back in the 60s. Just look at how much we're dependent on technology now. It's gonna kill us if we're not careful. And well, people refuse to listen to this thing.
It's definitely a scary thought, and man, like it just plays on cost for somebody who's got claustrophobia like me. Like that's one of my worst nightmares.
Yeah, it's like you keep wanting to replace parts of your body with mechanics and cybernetics.
Yeah,
this is what you're gonna end up as.
Yeah, basically.
Like, seriously, and what brings up the horror factor even more, is the fact that you can still see the guy's brain inside.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the interesting bit of trademark with the Cybermen is that you actually have the Cybus logo on the front, which
Yeah.
and another thing I really like about this episode is that it gives a nod to the Invasion episode, one of the best Cybermen stories in my opinion, with the main villains, as they say in that episode, are the International Electromedics, led by Tobias Vaughn, which we talked about at length in the previous episode. But in this episode, they do mention International Electromedics. It's a sort of a reference, but it's a shell company bought out by Cybus Industries, which are the ones that aren't collaborating with the Cybermen like International Electromedics.
This was an alternate reality, like a parallel universe.
Yeah, it's a parallel universe. So in that universe, International Electromedics isn't communicating with Cybermen who have a secret base on the moon. They're actually manufacturing Cybermen, and they're the origin of the Cybermen from that universe, as opposed to the Cybermen being created on Mondas, Earth's twin planet in the main Doctor Who universe. But that is it for that episode. Unless you have something else you want to add.
I don't, other than it is one of the better Tennant Rose episodes. For sure.
And one of the best Mickey episodes, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was gonna say one of the best episodes surrounding that pocket of characters, for sure.
Yeah.
Because we get the reintroduction of Rose's dad.
Yeah.
Great storyline there. But anyways.
And all these elements come back, plus more, in Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, the two-parter that ended that same season, which was also fully brought Torchwood into the fray. Perfect. And this time we got Cybermen all over the world. It's a concept that has been hinted at in various parts of the classic series, but actually seeing Cybermen in action in all these different locations, real-world locations, that's really what brings the fear factor even more. Sounded like you wanted to say something there.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. And here's something interesting that we see with the Cybermen here is that in the Rise of the Cybermen in Age of Steel two-parter, the Cybermen have this weapon that's sort of in their palms. It's like where they touch someone and they just electrocute them or delete them, and that's how they kill people. This episode introduces the idea that they have wrist-mounted weapons, which was sort of forgotten after that.
But yeah, that's right. I don't remember. Yeah, you're right. I don't remember that now.
But I think it was the first time that the Cybermen had that type of weapon, because in the classic series, whenever they do have weapons, it was either the chest unit that they carried around with themselves, or they actually were walking around with guns, as we're seeing these Cybermen right here, which were also in Doomsday, but they were given the human weapons from the alternate Earth to hopefully fight against the Daleks. And oh yeah, now you mention it, the Daleks are also in the episode, so it's not really a Cybermen story. It's a joint venture between Daleks and Cybermen. Now it is,
but with the reintroduction, though.
Yeah, of both.
Of both, yeah. As to like how big of a threat these guys are.
Yeah, like you saw how big of a threat we had facing the Daleks a few episodes ago. We saw how big of a threat the Cybermen were a couple of episodes ago. We saw how big of a threat the Daleks were in last season. Imagine seeing both of them at the same time.
Right.
And the Daleks and Cybermen have shared the screen once in the 5 Doctors, but they haven't actually been in shared scenes with each other. There was just one Dalek early on, and then a couple of other Cybermen later in the episode. But here's something interesting that they brought into this episode. They reintroduced the idea of Cyber Leader. As you can see, it's kind of hard to tell, but you can kind of see that the Cyber Leader in this episode here in this picture has the black handlebars, which has been a staple of Cyber Leaders since.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah, it's been a staple ever since this design for the Cybermen.
I guess because like if you bring up that picture again, like the black doesn't pop out in the
Yeah, because the handlebars are slightly smaller and
Well,
thinner.
but also like the black itself, it just doesn't pop out. Like it just
All right.
like looking at this, it just kind of looks like a slightly different shade of the other gray.
Yeah, but it was more noticeable on the classic series Cybermen.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course, because black and white.
No, because that's not just that. It's because the handlebars were bigger. Like the black was more pronounced. And speaking of which, the next time we see the Cybermen was in The Next Doctor, which featured David Tennant and David Morrissey in the Christmas special with this Cyber Leader design, which, once again, more black on the helmet design and the exposed brain that was introduced in the cyber control. What?
Ew.
Yeah, gross, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how else would you know that it's a Cyber Leader? Like, you gotta make the leader stand out amongst the henchmen.
That's one hell of a way to do it.
Yeah. Now, here's something interesting that they changed the voice for the Cybermen, and this is something that really stands out with the Cybermen is that almost every episode they change their voice for some reason. Like, I think on all the Doctor Who monsters, they're the ones that have had their voice changed the most.
Huh. I guess I never noticed.
Yeah, especially if you bring in the classic series into it as well. But yeah, this episode also features the Cyber Shades.
Yeah.
Which essentially it's a primitive conversion of either a dog or a cat brain with this bronze-looking cyberpunk, literally.
It's just creepy as all hell. Let's just say it.
Yeah. But they're a lot less intelligent than the regular Cybermen, but they are a lot stronger, being able to drag the Doctor and Jackson Lake through a couple of buildings in the episode.
Oh, yeah.
And that's another concept that was introduced in one episode and never seen it or heard from again.
But hey, you know what? Russell T Davies is back, so it could be something that's revisited now, right?
Could be. I mean, that was his last Cyberman story, which also featured the Cyber King.
All we needed was a freaking Megazord.
Yeah, as if the Cyber Shades weren't bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the idea of a giant robot with a factory in the chest that converts people, it's basically, if you actually watch the episode, it's actually a lot more like the Iron Giant, in that bit where he loses it and starts shooting people. It always reminds me of that, but I mean, it's a really big threat, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got anything to say about these Cybermen before we move on to the Matt Smith era?
No, well, like I said, I never noticed they changed voices. Just basically, not other than what I've said already, not really. Other than now, you've got me wanting to go back and rewatch starting Tenet.
I have this effect on people.
You do, and I just might. I look to see it's not streaming anywhere, so thank God I have the DVDs.
Yeah. It's not streaming on BritBox?
No, it's not streaming anywhere over here. So, like I said, luckily I have the DVDs of Tennant, Smith, first season Capaldi, and first season Whittaker.
Cool. Good for you.
Yeah.
Now, in the Matt Smith era, the Cybermen they didn't have as many full-on stories. In fact, this might actually surprise you, but on television, the Doctor, Amy, and Rory didn't have a Cyberman story.
Yeah, that checks out. Because when it comes to Smith, I only remember him and Clara with the Cybermen. Yeah.
And the Cybermen have appeared here and there, but they never had a full-on story with the 11th Doctor, Amy, and Rory. The only time we actually do, times, plural, where we actually do get to see Cybermen in that era was in the Pandorica Opens and the Big Bang. We get this half-beaten, folding apart Cybermen underneath Stonehenge, where it literally just drops the head inside it. It tries to convert Amy into a Cyberman, but then it's then later revealed that all the Cybermen were there as part of the alliance with all these different aliens from all over Doctor Who wanted to to trap the Doctor inside the Pandorica. And you can see here, it's still the Cybus models with the Cyber Leader having the black handlebars.
Now I see it. Yeah. Now that I know what it exists, I can see it.
I guess it's also a matter of the lighting.
True.
And the next time we see the Cybermen was in A Good Man Goes to War. We see them briefly at the opening with Rory basically shouting at them. But anything else interesting you can immediately spot with these Cybermen here?
Well, other than the reappearance of the Cyber Leader with the exposed brain, nothing. Oh, it looks like they're missing the Cyberdyne logo.
Cyberdyne is from Terminator, my man.
You know what I mean? The Cyrus Industries, whatever it's called.
Yep. This is what these new model Cybermen look like. Basically, the exact same model, just with this circular thing in the center.
I knew it happened at some point, or that logo disappeared. I just wasn't sure when.
Yeah, which only hints at the fact that these aren't the parallel Earth Cybermen. These are the genuine Cybermen from the main universe, whose technology finally caught up to how the Cybermen look like in the parallel Earth.
Yep.
But we saw them. We did see them again very briefly in Closing Time, the Matt Smith story with James Corden.
Yeah, where he overpowers the conversion process with love. Such a great ending.
Yeah. A lot of people didn't like that idea, but I mean,
I love it.
A lot of people don't have hearts.
Yeah, like Cybermen.
Cybermen.
I just love it that the idea that love conquers all, and as a hopeless romantic, it's awesome.
I think you mean El Hopeless Romantic.
Yes.
And here's another interesting picture that I have here. These are what those Cybermen from that story look like, because they crashed in the middle of, rather underneath the Earth, and have been staying there for who knows how long. So I like this disheveled look of a Cyberman as opposed to the shining, glittering look that we got from the David Tennant.
It makes it look more deranged a little bit.
Yeah, and it makes it look a bit more Star Warsy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you really stop and think about it, even though the Matt Smith era did keep the same designs, they did some interesting design choices with the existing Cybermen mold.
Yeah, just the right amount of tweaks.
Yeah. But that was the last we saw of the Cybermen before the Pawns had their departure from the show. And the next time the Cybermen showed up was, as you mentioned, with Clara in the episode Nightmare in Silver, written by Neil Gaiman, by the way. But also featured a Cyber Planner. I think this is the first appearance of the Cyber Planner in the modern series.
Yeah, very weird when you see it for the first time and you don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I think I much prefer the Cyber Planner in the classic series, but I think the idea of Mr. Clever, so the sort of trying to take over the Doctor with this weird cybernetic tattoo on his face, that was pretty creepy, and it made for good character choices from Matt Smith. But other than that, I prefer the Cyber Planner design from the Invasion story. You're making a face. You're not like that?
I'm agreeing with you. There's just a delay. There's a lag delay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've noticed that too. It's weird. But another thing that this episode also introduced, a complete redesign of the Cybermen, which has, I believe, stayed on for the rest of the Stephen Moffat era of the show.
This is the Iron Man look.
Yeah, definitely the Iron Man look. I will be honest, not the biggest fan of the face or the head design. Love the rest of the body, but I'm not the biggest fan of the way the face.
I actually agree with you. It does stick out like a sore thumb, because if you're gonna update the body, you have to update the head. It just I mean, that one doesn't look that bad.
I mean, I don't know what it is about this thing, but something about it just doesn't look right about the face. Like
Yeah, the body looks angry while the face just looks.
it looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to take this thing seriously. Like if they just kept, where is it? If they kept this face on the Cybermen and just had the body that they were going for, I think the Cybermen will look great.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
Yeah.
It's just a little weird.
And you know what else this episode introduced?
Hmm.
Fast Cybermen.
That's right.
There's like several moments where you basically see the Cybermen being the Flash, where like everything around them slows down and they walk regular speed, but everything else slows down around them, and they just sort of using the speed force, walking, taking stuff apart, running around, and then everything goes back to regular speed. Like it's a weird effect that happens in the episode, but it's interesting if you notice it right away. So this episode also it takes place at the tail end, or rather, sorry, after the Cyber Wars, where the war between the humans and the Cybermen led to the destruction of a galaxy. But the Cyber Wars could be a topic in and of themselves one day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next time you see the Cybermen, can you tell me when?
It's with Matt Smith and Clara.
Maybe.
No, it's with Capaldi and Clara, isn't it?
No.
Oh.
It's in the time of the Doctor.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Where we see the wooden Cybermen.
Cybermen. I forgot about the wood Cybermen.
Yeah, like in that episode, basically every single species that's ever fought the Doctor is trying to prevent him from releasing the Time Lords again, and they find weird and creative ways to do that and to try to invade and destroy Transalore. One way that they try to do that is by making the Cybermen made of wood.
Yep.
And you know what? We do see the return of the wrist-mounted weapon in this. It might have also showed up in Nightmare in Silver, but I can't quite remember at the moment if they did show back up again. I do know that he appeared in the Capaldi era, but we do see them in the on the wooden Cybermen as a flamethrower. Which how is a wooden creature have a flamethrower as a weapon? Like, how does that work? What are you even burning? Tree sap?
Yeah, it's a little weird, but it's a nice looking design. I totally forgot about that.
And I love the way the Doctor defeats it is by using the sonic screwdriver and being like, I just reversed the polarity on your weapon, causing it to shoot from behind. And since we're standing in a truth field, you know that I'm not lying. And he's like, your logic is sound. And he spins the weapon around and shoots himself in the chest. And he's like, oh yeah, I suppose I should have mentioned it doesn't work on wood.
Yeah. And the Doctor lies.
Yep. Well, he didn't lie because he was standing in a truth field. He just forgot to mention something. That's not lying, is it?
That's a loophole. That's what that is.
That's what the Doctor does. Yep. Always look for the loophole. And as you've already mentioned, next time we do see the Cybermen show up again was in Dark Water and A Death in Heaven, which also features the proper introduction of Missy.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot those two were together.
Yeah, and it also introduces us to the tragically shocking idea of, hey, so dead people become Cybermen when they die and their souls go to heaven. Which heaven exists. It's just a Time Lord hard drive thing that's in St. Paul's Cathedral for some reason. I never understood the point of that episode.
Majority of those early Capaldi episodes are true head scratchers.
Well, you say head scratchers, I say yeesh.
Touche.
But I mean, it was a really cool moment when the reveal happens that, oh yeah, it's a Cyberman story when the doors close and
I
basically,
agree.
yeah,
It's
you
just,
learn that the 3W logo is basically just the eyes of a Cyberman, and you see the tanks emptying up and the skeletons becoming Cybermen.
yeah,
That doesn't make the episode any less weird, though.
like it's like the story surrounding the idea just wasn't up to snuff. Like I said,
A
it's like
lot of
majority
cool,
of
yeah, a
that.
lot of cool stuff in it. Some horrible scenes
Oh
with
yeah,
Clara and Danny in it. It's like one of my least favorite things ever. And it's
they're
like, what?
they definitely went full on horror this season in a way.
Yeah, and so can you explain to me why this whole institute had to be in St. Paul's Cathedral,
I
other than the fact that Stephen Moffat really wanted to recreate this shot from the invasion for no reason at all?
honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, so
That's
one
probably
of
what it
the
was. Yeah,
yeah, I mean
which
you
I
already
get.
I mean you already made you already giving people nightmares by saying that dead people are Cybermen
Yeah,
after they die. Why are you gonna make it even more complicated? Because he wanted to throw in the invasion reference, and he goes even harder with the invasion reference when Kate Stewart shows up the next episode with
hmm
the actual head of a Cyberman from that episode, saying, "Oh, you left this in one of your previous encounters," because you know they didn't go for the reference hard enough. If you couldn't already tell, this episode really upsets me.
yeah, no kidding, eh? What gave it
Yeah,
away?
and another thing you mentioned, there's Danny Pink,
Oh yeah,
also becoming a
that's the
Cyberman.
one. That's just an
I
image.
mean,
That's an image.
again, I hate this episode for a lot of reasons, but I also love a lot of stuff in it, like
Yeah,
Misty, obviously. But I mean, just look at this: the makeup and prosthetic and the design
it's a
on this
good
character.
episode. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's a good season finale. It's just the lead up to it is spotty,
Yeah,
in my
I don't think
opinion.
it's a,
In my opinion.
yeah, I don't think it's a good season finale. I think it's a bad season finale with a lot of good stuff in it, but it's mostly horrible, in
Mm.
my opinion.
Yeah, it's just the image of Denny Pink, half human, half Cyberman. It's just that is the image that whenever I was as a kid would think of like getting sucked in and made into a robot. Like I said with Superman 3, that's kind of what the image ended up looking like, was like my face on a robotic body. So that freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah, because I mean, if you watch uh, the Superman 3 again, it kind of looks wonky with by today's standards
Yeah,
with the effects. But this thing, though, this thing,
yeah, this is just terrifying.
I mean, look at the guy's face.
He's yeah, oh, you really feel for Danny Pink.
Yeah,
Like what
even though I hate the character. But yeah,
like
you know what? You know something else this episode also introduced?
hmm.
They fly now.
Oh yes, that's
They're
right.
flying Cybermen all of a sudden.
Hey, Iron Man.
Yeah, like they went full on Iron Man with these guys.
Yeah, that's and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the reason behind it.
With what? Did they want to make it more
Well,
Iron Man?
well, yeah. Look at when that episode, like look around when that episode came out. We were at the height of the MCU, right?
No.
So I mean, like, yeah, if you're gonna, might as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Iron Man helped with that idea, whether you like it or not. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
And it's kind of weird that in all the decades the Cybermen have been around, that they never introduced the idea of flying Cybermen, at least not on a
But
television set.
remember, though, they're also robotic organisms which can upgrade. So
Yeah,
it's also not out of the realm of possibility.
yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying it's weird that it took them this many seasons to fly.
Yeah, yeah, especially when you had the technology to do it earlier too.
True, yeah. And so the Cybermen were basically kind of a no-show for the next couple of these seasons, but it did resurface again with Missy and the Master, the John Sim Master. Let me see if it's the right picture. No, but they did resurface in World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls, where Bill, the companion Bill, was made into a Cyberman by the end of the first half of
There
the
you
movie.
go again, trying to screw Soda's dreams up again. Like I
Yeah,
saw that episode, I'm like, what the fuck?
and it's not only that. They went back to the original 1966 Mondasian Cyberman design, just updated with modern
Which what I
things.
thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think the idea there is that this is the Cybermen in their early days.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they look like the original 1960s version, and they slowly upgrade as the plot of the next episode goes along, which ends up with this weird mishmash of the old and the new. You can
Mm-hmm.
see several of them in this image right here. And oh yeah, something that the original Mondasian Cybermen didn't have is that they fire laser from the top of their head now instead of from their chest unit.
You think this is all going to be a one-off? You think we're going to see this this design continue going forward?
I mean, we kind of see them again in the next episode, Twice Upon a Time.
What,
But
what,
I mean, it's basically like
what I mean is,
a scene by scene recreation of the William Hartnell story.
okay, no,
So,
what I meant was with Russell T Davies.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I love the design, but the design only works in this episode because of what they're trying to say. Is that this is the Cybermen when they began evolving all the way into the modern Cybermen design that we're familiar with.
Okay, well then, next question: do you think Russell Davies is going to follow that pattern, and when you see them again, it's going to be a modern take on the original second version?
I don't think so. That's not really something that Russell T Davies does.
That's not his style. Fair.
That's not his style. I mean, I think I've said this best a couple of times: is that Stephen Moffat likes to play with other people's toys.
Mm-hmm.
Russell T Davies creates his own toys and plays with them.
Yeah, fair.
I mean, obviously, for Stephen Moffat, the exception is the Leaping Angels, but there's an exception to every rule.
Yep, and what an exception. Woof.
And the next time we do see the Cybermen was in Jodie Whittaker's second season in the form of the lone Cyberman named Ashad, who shows up in The Haunting of Villa Diodati. And he basically became the inspiration for Frankenstein.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
this is the Mary Shelley episode.
The Mary Shelley episode. He just shows up with Mary Shelley and Lord Byron and Dr. Palidori and the fourth girl that I can't remember her name. But
now, agreed.
Yeah, but I mean, just look at him. He's basically the inspiration for Frankenstein.
I can see that.
Now, I think Ashad was a really good well-built character. I mean, just look at his face. He's a close-up on his face.
Yowzers.
So he's basically a mishmash of different Cybermen elements. Like he's got
the opera.
What?
By way of the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, it's very Phantom of the Opera. He's got the Matt Smith Cyberman head design. Mm-hmm. Although I believe on the right side, the side facing his exposed face, that's a Peter Davison era Cyberman. Wow. And if you look at the rest of him, like he's got the rest of the torso of the Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi era Cyberman, but his left arm is an original Mondasian Cyberman hand.
Shit. So yeah, now I see the connection to Frankenstein. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was because it was the human and you can see him in the Cyberman thing. I didn't realize like it was because it was a mishmash of different Cybermen.
And I'm pretty sure the legs are the David Tennant era Cyberman legs. I think. I don't know. I don't remember much. But
cool.
Here's another good picture of him where you can definitely see the Mondasian Cyberman hand.
Yeah.
And you can see the wrist-mounted weapon on the right arm.
Yeah.
And it's basically him and the doctor trying to find the Siberiad, it's basically like a liquid-based supercomputer that has all the information on the Cybermen or whatnot. Like when we first meet this thing, he loses his memories, and you almost start to feel sympathetic for him before he falls back into the original Cybermen programming. It just becomes what you expect the Cybermen to be like. And I think, yeah, now looking at it, I think those legs are the
Yeah,
David
they
Tennant era
definitely
Cybermen.
look like it.
Yeah. And after he gains the Siberia, he goes back into the last days of the Cyber Wars and tries to wipe out whatever is left of humanity completely off of history.
That's pretty cool.
Which leads into Ascension of the Cybermen, and another frightening thing we learn about these Cybermen now. Their heads can basically be a weapon now.
Oh man!
Like the detached heads can just fly around and fire lasers at you, as if the Cybermen weren't dangerous enough on their own.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and Ashad, having regained this, the Siberia, is now leading a troop of these disheveled last remaining Cybermen from the Cyber Wars to wipe out the last of humanity, and along the way discovers other Cybermen on a deserted Cybermen ship, which of course then leads us into the Timeless Children. But before we get into that, yeah, he finds some more of these old disheveled Cybermen on a spaceship, and he uses his Cybermen to invade the destroyed Gallifrey, which was destroyed by the Master a couple of episodes ago. Which leads into one of the scariest things we are going to talk about today. But before that, we also get a redesign for the Cybermen.
Can't drop a tease like that.
What?
You can't drop a tease like that.
I mean, it gives you something to look forward to, doesn't it?
Jeez.
But before that, here's a new, modern, updated redesign for the Jodie Whittaker era.
Okay.
Now, it basically keeps the same chest plate thing from the Matt Smith Capaldi era, but the rest of the design is a lot sleeker. It's got these scary spikes on the shoulders, the very prominent wrist-mounted weapon, and the design of the head is more akin to the Invasion all the way up to Silver Nemesis version of the Cybermen with the much larger heads. Hold on, where is it? More along the lines of this with these new Cybermen. What do you think of this redesign?
I like it.
I like it too.
No, it does kind of make it more obvious it's a man in a suit.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it is a man in a suit, you got to make it more comfortable for the man in the suit to walk around in, right?
100%. But no, I do like it. Yeah, it kind of almost looks like a Cyberman spacesuit, I guess.
I suppose so. But this design was seen very briefly because, again, after they go back to Gallifrey and after the Master gets his hands on them, we get arguably one of the scariest things in Doctor Who of all time: the Cyber Masters, Cybermen, and Time Lords. Basically, Time Lord Cybermen with the ability to regenerate.
That's scary.
Now, how is that not scary enough?
Oh, it's very scary.
Well, and this also features another redesign for these Cyber Masters. I mean, look at them.
Totally.
I mean, it's got the Gallifreyan writings. It's got the Time Lord hat thing on the heads.
Yeah, which replaces the handlebars, which is a nice
interesting change. And you can see that some of them still have the handlebars. So I'm guessing these are cyber leaders, the ones with the Time Lord thing. Here's another one. So some of these also have robes now because Time Lords. I think it's the best of both worlds. Some more spikes on the legs now. I mean, I think this is the scariest Cyberman design we've ever gotten.
It's freaking it's Doctor Who meets Kiss is what it is.
I don't know. I mean, you probably know that better than I do, but
it definitely is.
Yeah, and also look at the more broken mouth thing. That's another thing that adds to the scary of the design. And hold on, let me just put this in full screen. Yeah. Oh yeah, something I've only just noticed now is that the little tear duct thing on the eyes is right at the bottom now instead of being on the side.
Yeah, I just noticed it.
Yeah. And you know what? It kind of looks like an upside down stopwatch.
Little bit, yeah.
Because Time Lords.
Yeah.
I like that design. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it's a pretty cool design.
Not, but no, it's pretty cool.
Now, the next time we do see the Cybermen show up, of course, in the Timeless Children, naturally, the Cybermen weren't the main focus on the episode. We all know what was the main focus of that episode, but the next time we do see the Cybermen, they didn't have a proper story after that. I mean, they only showed up slightly during the Flux series, and it was the previous design of the Cybermen without the Cyber Masters. And again, they weren't the main threat. Like, naturally, the main threat was the Flux and the Ravagers, but the Daleks and Cybermen did show up a bit, only to be fooled by the Sontarans later in the season. But I mean, they did show up in Once Upon a Time, the episode, not the TV show.
Yeah, I would say, well, that's an interesting crossover.
Yeah, and the next time we do see them properly, which I guess could qualify as a Cyberman story, was The Power of the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker's final episode. We get this nice, cool close-up shot at the Time Lord design thing on the head, on the Cyberman orb, the second moon that showed up during the Rasputin storyline of that episode. Here's a much better look at all these Cybermen. Here's another really good look at one of these Cybermen regenerating.
Oh, that's an image.
Yeah, like you see a Cyber Master regenerating.
Yikes.
So, any final thoughts on these last couple of Cybermen stories that I mean, obviously you haven't seen some of them. I know
you're definitely piquing my interest.
But I think the Chris Chibnall era did some interesting things with the Cybermen, but
yeah,
especially the Cyber Masters were slightly overshadowed by the Timeless Child, which was in that episode. But for better or for worse, that overshadowed.
Blame the guy for trying to hit for the fences every time. Just he knows.
I mean, yeah. When you hit, swing for the fences. You don't always land the hit. Yeah, it's always like when it lands, people love it. Case in point, Russell Davis and Stephen Moffat. But when it doesn't land, people hate it. But you can't blame the guy for trying, right?
100%.
For always going for the unexpected.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts on some of these Cybermen?
None, not particularly, no.
Or okay, any final thoughts on any of these all the Cybermen stories we talked about today?
None in particular, but like I said, you did pique my interest, so I think after dinner I might watch a couple episodes and see if I might get back into a rewatch.
Cool. Now, obviously, I mean, I think it's a foregone conclusion that we will be seeing the Cybermen again.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can't just not use one of the iconic villains.
Yeah, I mean, they are the holy trinity of Doctor Who, like the Daleks, the Master, and the Cybermen.
Yeah.
You gotta reuse them, but that is a story for another time, particularly with the Gatwa era. So now that we've covered all the bases, we talked about all the Cybermen stories in the modern series, Mr. Soda, where can the good people of the interwebs find you?
You can find me on my personal Instagram and Twitter, or I'm never calling it X. Twitter.
As you should.
That's Soda_the_Saxman. You can see me doing stuff over here on the Northern Entertainment Group with 50. And you can find me over in the So Diggin' Wrestling channel.
Cool. And you can find me every Monday on this show, The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, every Thursday on Funnel Flags with this wonderful gentleman, and on my YouTube channel, 50 Shades of Geek, where I do weekly reviews of every single Doctor Who episode from 1963 all the way to 2022. And you can also check out all of these wonderful channels on the wider Benverse at large, like Something to Talk About, Galaxy Geeks, Multiverse of Geekdom, Movie Lovers Unite, The Midnight Cinema, 8-Time Reviews, and of course, In the Front Row, which is still on pictures on this thumbnail, but I keep mentioning it. It
really have to get fixed.
Now, we keep talking about it, and then just keep not doing anything with it. So yeah. That's it for the Cybermen. That's it for us. Next week, we will be talking about a very interesting topic. Hopefully this time Snark won't bail on me again, but only time will tell. So thank you all for watching if you have. And in the words of Missy herself,
don't forget to like and subscribe.
goodbye.